you start to understand what things can be solved with money and what cannot. I heard Charlie Munger, a partner of billionaire Warren Buffett, say, "There is nothing more useless for a 90-year-old man than $2 billion." I started to restrain myself less at work. Having the option to tell everyone to go fuck themselves gives a huge sense of freedom. When people find out you have a lot of money, they literally crawl out of the woodwork. After I closed a huge deal in my company, which apparently my mom blabbed to everyone, I suddenly started having relatives and friends I hadn't heard from in years. The same thing happened when my mom died. In both cases, I wanted to think that people came to me out of kindness, but the timing was too suspiciously coincidental. Meanwhile, I had my real friends who also knew all this, and in relationships with them, nothing changed at all. The company I had a stake in was sold. I received a sum much larger than 7 figures. On the advice of a business mentor, I didn't touch this money for a year. It was probably the best advice of my life. It immediately stopped the potential lifestyle inflation. After that, I cannot tolerate any crap at work and spend as much time with my children as I want. My friends had a large court settlement, and they received it in one check without taxes. The first thing their financial advisor said was not to touch the money for at least a year, not to make any drastic changes in life, not to buy anything big, and just let everything settle. They did just that. They smoothly changed their house for a bigger one, bought one car, then a second, went on a couple of trips, and did some repairs. All this stretched out over several years and did not attract much attention. The advisor wisely invested their funds, and even after all the purchases, they had more money than initially. But it took self-control and discipline, which many lack when receiving unexpected wealth. The story is not about me, but about my sister. In 2017, she didn't have a permanent home. She wandered around friends and relatives, worked for minimum wage, barely kept afloat. Then something happened. My nephew, the son of another sister of mine, was taken away by the guardianship authorities, and she and I took care of him. I sheltered them in my house, and he was very small, so they had to sleep in the living room. My sister worked, saved money, rented a tiny apartment for them, barely furnished it, paid the bills, but coped. Then another sister overdosed on heroin right in front of her daughter. Fortunately, there was Narcan nearby, and someone who knew how to use it. This girl was also taken away by the guardianship authorities, and my sister took her in. Money from guardianship and benefits helped my sister a little, but it was still very hard for them. And then, in 2019, her biological father, with whom they had not communicated, voluntarily took his own life. And only one heir to the trust that her biological grandfather had once founded remained alive. It was my sister. Literally, overnight, she became very wealthy. Now she has a beautiful house, a new car, a real paradise in the backyard for her nephew and 2 other foster children. The niece was later returned to her mother after successful rehabilitation. She no longer needs to work. They have everything, and no one deserved it more than she did. Recently, we inherited a significant amount of money. We knew we would have an inheritance, but we received about 3 times more than expected. Nothing has changed in our daily lives. I still work at the same job, as does my husband. Everything is the same, except for one thing: a feeling of colossal relief when you think about the future. We put half of the amount into an account for the children. College, graduate school, and so on are fully paid for. The second half was transferred to the management of our financial advisor acquaintance. This is our pension. The plan is this: the money will just lie there until we retire, and there are still many years until then. We also wrote generous checks to our favorite niece for future education and to 2 charities that are especially close to us. The realization that our future is secure is just an incredible feeling. I will add, we told almost no one about this money, and that was probably the most valuable advice we received and followed. Only the closest and most trusted relatives know about it. It also helped that nothing changed in our lives externally. The same house, the same cars. No one started asking for money because no one knows we have it. This is the advice I would give to anyone in our situation. Don't blab. Nothing has changed for us. The elder of our family realized that none of us had enough financial literacy to adequately transition from the middle class to this level of wealth. She suggested that everyone invest their shares in government bonds. Our income on them is noticeably higher than inflation. We are not in the USA. And everyone did just that. In essence, we just postponed the issue for 5 years. And we continue to live as before. The biggest change that I no longer have a father. I remember my father telling me that he was able to buy a new car with the money he received after his father's death, and that he couldn't tell him about it or show it. My dad also left us a large sum and investments, but we were already living comfortably. I would give every penny and more just to spend some more time with him. We recently went on a trip to reboot after his long illness, but the most important person was not around. I miss you, Dad. I stopped caring if I got fired because I have a financial cushion of stocks. Now I can safely object when I am asked for something inadequate, and I ask for a raise more confidently because I know I can safely leave at any moment. In 2016, I was in a motorcycle accident with a truck. I got a traumatic brain injury. I broke my right arm. I was evacuated by helicopter to intensive care. They put breathing and feeding tubes there. It took me years of rehabilitation to learn to think normally again. I sued and received $300,000 from the transport company. I am now paying off my mortgage with this money. Now I have a house. But God, I wouldn't wish anyone to go through what I went through, and my family who was with me all this time. You suddenly realize that many things that seemed desirable to you are actually not necessary for you even when you can afford them. With each purchase comes new expenses. Every house needs someone to look after it. Every car needs a mechanic. I inherited about $500,000 from my father, plus some real estate. After buying a house and a car, I still had quite a lot left, but I was in a difficult emotional state. His death was sudden, and I had a very hard time going through it. And I started throwing money around. Vacation after vacation, stupid purchases, expensive restaurants. As a result, I had almost nothing left, and my life remained pretty much the same as it was. The only difference is that our family now has its own house and a couple of good cars. I quit my second job. We paid off all the debts. We bought a house. This is the only remaining debt so far. And finally, we could afford to have a child. Yes, money doesn't buy happiness, but damn it, it can get you a lot closer to it. Money gave freedom from daily anxiety about finances. Professional advice? Don't tell anyone about it, or people will make your life insufferable. You know how in online stores or when searching for real estate, you can sort from the highest price to the lowest? I used to think it was just ridiculous and no one does that. It turned out to be very convenient when you don't have to think about money and you don't want to waste time looking at cheap options. I inherited $100,000 from my grandmother. I put everything in an account with high returns, and now the monthly interest is growing all the time, and I worry much less about money. Every year on my birthday, I withdraw a little bit to treat myself. Otherwise, I don't touch it. I live within my means. I hope to use this money as a down payment for housing one day. For me, it wasn't a sudden inheritance, but the moment when my husband joined the electricians union, his salary immediately increased from about $30 and now it's almost $40. This event changed our whole life. We went from barely making ends meet to real stability. We started saving, bought a house, a new car, and started going on vacation. For the first time, we flew on a plane and even visited another country. After more than 30 years of living in poverty, the last 10 years have been a tremendous improvement in the quality of life. And it's not even that I can buy toilet paper of a normal brand and no longer live in a trailer, but that the level of stress has decreased significantly. I don't worry about bills, I have a little extra money for hobbies and interests, and if something breaks in the house, like the washing machine recently, it's no longer a problem. Maybe we can't buy a new one right away, but we can at least buy the right part and fix it ourselves. Many decisions that used to be dictated by money now depend on other factors, mainly on comfort and quality. If you don't want to cook, you can order food, and from a good restaurant. You can walk somewhere, but calling an Uber is not a problem either. You can save a couple of hundred by choosing an inconvenient time for a flight, but it's not worth it. A new car? Well, if you take the interior, though, Yes, even an improved audio system. Comfort and quality are like dope. You become addicted to them. When my father-in-law died, my wife and her 3 siblings received $2,200,000 each in stocks and cash.